The internet where I'm staying is a little poor, and in fact, last night I realised I'd got hacked, which was rather disturbing. Spent sort of 3 hours trying to sort that out. But the question today, I think, is following the arrests yesterday for Palestine Action banners, banner waving, would it be illegal to publish photographs of the prescribed symbols or the banners in newspapers? Because if so, almost all the Sunday newspapers this morning should be prescribed, and the people who posted those photographs should be arrested. We find ourselves in the middle of a profoundly troubling moment for civil liberties in Britain, and this weekend's scenes in Parliament Square, where elderly clergy were handcuffed, banners seized, silent vigils disrupted, are an instructive window into the ferocity of tribalism and the absurdity of the laws now deployed to police it. Beginning with the tribalism itself, the ban on Palestine Action as a terrorist group is defended as a security measure. The group has undoubtedly engaged in criminal damage. Spraying paint in aircraft engines is not civilized protest, but it's sabotage. Sabotage itself is a form of protest where people threw their wooden shoes into machinery to clank up and stop the machinery. Yet our Parliament, with barely a murmur of dissent, chose to equate such acts with membership of Al-Qaeda or ISIS. It's a classic case of rhetorical inflation designed to shut down debate. And we need to be clear about this. Tribalism thrives on such demonization. Our politics has become a stark, moralized contest of good versus evil, in which any support for Palestinian resistance, even non-violent resistance, is cast as complicity with terrorism. Equally, some activists indulge in vile anti-Semitic rhetoric or violent attacks, as in Australia yesterday, on Jewish businesses and synagogues. The extremes feed each other. Each demands total loyalty to its own case and total denigration of the other. Now, the law, as written, is a blunt instrument made sharper by this atmosphere. Section 13 of the Terrorism Act 2000 criminalizes displaying articles that arouse reasonable suspicion of support for the prescribed organization. It is so vague it can be twisted to punish virtually any public act of solidarity. If you wear a Palestine Action t-shirt, you can be arrested. If you hold a sign saying, "I support Palestine Action," you can be arrested. The 83-year-old priest in Parliament Square was no threat to public safety. Her crime was one of opinion. What about the newspapers? The Telegraph, the Times, the BBC all published photos showing the same banners reading, "I support Palestine Action." I've got one up here. Are they in breach of the Terrorism Act? If the law were applied consistently, you might argue that they are disseminating, I am disseminating, or displaying the same slogans. But of course, they're not prosecuted, nor am I. Why? Because context matters. I don't support Palestine Action. They don't support Palestine Action. The press will say they are reporting the news, not expressing personal support. The law makes a technical distinction. Section 13 requires that the manner of display must arouse reasonable suspicion that the person is a supporter. But that, again, is a subjective decision. The newspaper printing an image with an explanatory caption is not, in theory, supporting the group. It's describing the event. It's still promulgating the concept. The Home Office and the Crown Prosecution Service will not prosecute journalistic reporting, even if the photos contain the prescribed slogans. But think carefully about the effect of this. It creates a double standard. A journalist can show the image, but an activist cannot. The press may profit from the spectacle of repression, while the protester languishes in custody. Freedom of expression is preserved for commentary, for consumption, but not for the raw act of dissent itself. We have built a legal structure so vague that it criminalizes silent vigils in front of Gandhi's statue, yet so selective that it grants newspapers the right to reproduce the very slogans that get those people arrested in the street. We are asked to believe that the same words are either terrorism or reportage, depending entirely on the speaker's intentions the police, in their capacity as law upholders, must divine. It is the very essence of arbitrary power. And this isn't merely, I think, an academic quibble. When states label opponents as terrorists on the basis of property damage, however serious, they set a precedent for repressing legitimate protest. The next government may choose to deploy these powers against environmental activists who block traffic or sabotage pipelines. Meanwhile, the cycle of tribal hatred intensifies. Images of handcuffed octogenarians become recruitment posters for more radical action, and the spectacle of police repression is itself a propaganda gift for those who wish to portray Britain as a censorious authoritarian regime. Tribalism demands purity and loyalty. The law has become its weapon, defining dissent as treachery. But the mark of a free society is its willingness to tolerate even unpopular, even offensive speech, to distinguish between words and violence, solidarity and criminal complicity. We can and must prosecute sabotage. But to ban an entire movement, to criminalize support for its goals, to arrest pensioners for holding signs, this is not the action of a confident liberal democracy. This is not the action of a civilized society. This is the action of a thuggish society managed by an organization like the Kremlin. This is the action of a man in a fridge, in a smeg fridge, pontificating about his future. His future is to be an icicle, a lollipop. His future is to be sucked by some passing stranger. That is the future of Putin. If Keir Starmer wishes to embrace the same future, well, can't say about Boris, because Boris himself imprisoned himself in his own fridge at one point. It's the action of a state that fears the messiness of free expression. And that is why we should all be alarmed, regardless of our views on Palestine or Israel, because today's law will not stop at one cause. Once built, the machinery of suppression, the machinery of oppression, the machinery of tyranny will turn wherever it is pointed. It is illegal today for newspapers or is it illegal? It isn't illegal. Is it illegal for newspapers to publish photographs of these slogans? The answer, I think, must be no, because the law requires the manner of display to arouse suspicion of the publisher's support. Journalism is supported. It is absurd that private citizens cannot do the same. Utterly. Maybe a citizen journalist can do the same. Maybe Tommy Robinson can publish these pictures without fear of arrest. He is, after all, a citizen journalist, he says. Is this a defense of vandalism? No, it's a defense of freedom of thought, freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, even for the defiant, the provocative, the elderly priest walking with a stick, who dared to sit under Gandhi's gaze and say, "I oppose genocide."